In the dark and treacherous underworld of bikers, a merciless battle for dominance erupted, engulfing Scandinavia in a torrent of bloodshed. The clash between the Hells Angels and the Bandidos, armed to the teeth with rocket launchers and explosives, became a savage struggle that shook the region from 1994 to 1997. The battleground stretched across Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Finland, earning the conflict the infamous name of the Great Nordic Biker War. It all began in 1980 when Bjorn Nielsen planted the Hells Angels flag in Denmark. From there, the club faced off against their rivals and emerged triumphant. The Hells Angels saw their chance to expand their dominion throughout Scandinavia, and by 1992, their rule seemed unassailable. But tensions escalated when the Undertaker MC, once allied with the Hells Angels, cast their lot with the emerging Bandidos, who had recently set foot in Europe, initially centered in France. Eager to extend their influence, the Bandidos joined forces with the Undertaker MC in Denmark in 1993. In response, the Hells Angels vowed to quash the rising threat of the Bandidos in Sweden in 1994. Territorial disputes, overlapping criminal activities, and personal vendettas festered within the biker subculture, fueling the conflict's escalating brutality. This war, spanning over 2 harrowing years, witnessed the gruesome demise of over 20 members from both the Hells Angels and the Bandidos. A staggering 74 attempted murders plagued the scene, leaving 94 individuals wounded, many scarred for life. In this battle, no weapon was too extreme. Car bombs, machine guns, hand grenades, anti-tank rockets, and handguns were their tools of destruction. They even dared to plot assassinations within the fortified walls of prisons. The most intense confrontations unfolded in the heart of Copenhagen, Denmark, Helsinki, Finland, Oslo, Norway, and Helsingborg, Sweden. The spark that ignited the raging Inferno came on January 22, 1994 when the Morbide CFC, a fledgling Bandidos chapter in Helsingborg, came under attack. Supporters of the Hells Angels rebel Sam C unleashed a hailstorm of heavy weaponry upon the newly established Bandidos, marking a pivotal moment. Just 2 days later, on January 26, 1994, Thomas Muller, the president of the Hells Angels chapter in Malmö, celebrated by unleashing submachine gun fire from a delivery van's rooftop at the Bandidos clubhouse in Sweden. A Bandidos member lost a finger in the brutal attack. Wary of the Bandidos expansion, the Hells Angels leadership in the United States sought to avoid an all-out war and the subsequent legal repercussions. They invited Thomas Muller, the president of the Hells Angels in Sweden, to a meeting aimed at diffusing tensions in Europe. Following the meeting in the United States, prominent Bandidos members convened with the American chapter in Houston, hoping to resolve the conflict. However, the Bandidos leaders in the US struggled to rein in their Helsingborg chapter, who continued to support retaliatory actions by their supporter clubs against the Hells Angels in Sweden. Even Bandidos leaders from Texas engaged in talks with Hells Angels chapters in Sweden and Denmark, desperately seeking a resolution. But diplomacy proved futile, and in the spring of 1994, a wave of shootings erupted in Helsingborg, leaving multiple victims in its wake. The war exposed the divergent strategies adopted by the two factions, with the Bandidos launching seemingly random attacks while the Hells Angels targeted their adversaries' leadership with precision. Merely 17 days later, in a Swedish nightclub, Hells Angels members ambushed 15 Danish Bandidos. Gunfire erupted, 13 shots ringing out, and Joachim B., a member of a Hells Angels support club, fell dead. Diplomacy had been crushed, replaced by a hail of bullets. 3 more individuals, including Hells Angels prospect Johnny Lassen and a Bandidos member, suffered grave injuries. From that moment onward, the spiral of violence spun out of control. On November 11, 1994, a Hells Angels supporter met his fate when he was shot in his car in the heart of Helsingborg. 2 days later, a brawl erupted between Bandidos and Hells Angels supporters in a nightclub. That same week, a Bandidos member brutally killed a fellow inmate in Helsingborg prison, allegedly due to the inmate's connections with the Hells Angels. Then, on July 17, 1995, the escalation reached a grim milestone when Michael, the president of the Bandidos in Sweden, was gunned down while riding his motorcycle on the E-road in southern Sweden. The murder remained unsolved, but it triggered a chain of events. A supporter club from the Hells Angels in Stockholm aligned themselves with a Hells Angels chapter, seeking retribution for their fallen leader. The Bandidos retaliated by launching 2 attacks on the Hells Angels, using stolen anti-tank rockets from a Swedish army depot against a Hells Angels supporters clubhouse in northern Finland. The rockets pierced the building but failed to explode upon impact. Christmas of 1995 marked the entry of the war into Denmark as 2 Hells Angels members fell victim to a merciless beating by several Bandidos in a Copenhagen nightclub. From January 1996 onward, the conflict spiraled further, plunging the 2 clubs into the most violent phase of the war. Norway's Hells Angels clubhouses and their supporters' premises became targets for numerous bombings, while a Hells Angels pub in Finland was struck by a devastating bomb attack on March 1, 1996. In retaliation, the Hells Angels unleashed a merciless assault on a Bandidos clubhouse in Finland, ruthlessly gunning down 2 high-ranking Bandidos members, including the Finnish vice president, Jack OK. The war had now engulfed all of Scandinavia. Within the span of just over a week in early March 1996, 8 biker group members were shot across 4 different countries. 3 days later, the Hells Angels launched a double attack on Bandidos members at Copenhagen and Oslo airports. Both clubs had attended events in Helsinki and were returning to their respective cities in Denmark and Norway when the Hells Angels set up deadly ambushes at both airports. In Copenhagen, 2 Bandidos members, a prospect and a supporter, were mercilessly shot and killed, while Lars H., the president of Bandidos Norway, suffered injuries in another shooting in Oslo. The airport shootout signaled the beginning of the most savage phase of the Scandinavian Biker War. Shortly after the airport shootings, an unexploded hand grenade was discovered outside a Bandidos chapter clubhouse in Norway, heightening tensions further within weeks. The Biker War demanded ever-increasing ingenuity and tactics. On May 1, 1997, an attack targeting an incarcerated Bandidos member was foiled. The unsuspecting prisoner received an electric razor containing 95 grams of concealed explosives. Had he plugged in the razor, it would have detonated. However, the prison authorities grew suspicious and confiscated the device before it could be used. Finally, in the summer of 1997, the relentless hostilities ceased, bringing the conflict to a close. Neither side had emerged as a clear victor. The deaths of 2 unrelated women sparked public outrage against the warring bikers, leading to intense scrutiny from politicians and law enforcement agencies. Internal pressures within the clubs also played a role in ending the war. Exhausted from years of bloodshed and confronted with sudden public condemnation, the bikers found the motivation to seek a resolution. Numerous businesses associated with the bikers suffered significant setbacks. With both sides compelled to find a resolution, the leaders of the Bandidos and Hells Angels in America and Europe convened. The Danish chapters of the clubs played a pivotal role in brokering an end to the Biker War. They crafted a contract delineating each club's territory, including specific bars, cafes, and nightclubs. On September 25, 1997, the president of Hells Angels Europe, Band Nielsen, and his Bandidos counterpart held a live televised press conference, officially announcing an end to hostilities while keeping the details of their agreement concealed. A total of 138 individuals were sentenced to a combined 240 years in prison as a consequence of the Biker War between 1996 and 1997. The last gang member imprisoned for crimes committed during the war was released on parole in December 2015. Since the peace agreement in 1997, confrontations between the Hells Angels and Bandidos in Scandinavia have been rare. Today, the 2 clubs even arrange joint outings on occasion. Their peace agreement served as a blueprint for the German Hells Angels and Bandidos, who likewise signed a similar contract. The Biker War left behind a trail of over 20 murders, 74 attempted killings, and 96 injured individuals. Among the injured, 40 had ties to the Hells Angels, 34 to the Bandidos, and 22 were either police officers or civilians. We hope you found this tale of the underworld captivating. Don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications to stay updated on future content. Your support is genuinely appreciated. Until next time we meet behind bars.